everybody, welcome back to the Working Man's Whiskey. I'm Bobby. Guess this will be our Halloween edition show. Tomorrow will be Halloween, so hence the pumpkin here. And in general, I just love the fall season. It's getting a little cold outside, and want to start bundling up a little bit. And to me, that's when fall is kind of whiskey season, or the start of whiskey season. Not that there's ever a bad season for whiskey, but I love the fall, the cold weather, just warming up, watching movies, or even hanging out by a fire outside with a bottle of whiskey. Just doesn't get any better than that. So anyway, today's whiskey I want to review. It's a whiskey I've actually never tried before. It's a bottom shelfer. Like to throw some bottom shelf whiskeys in there every now and then because they deserve love too. And every once in a while, you find one that surprises you. And this one is called 10 High. And 10 High has been around a long time. I believe it was introduced. It's weird. The bottle says established 1879, but I believe this was. It says it was introduced right after Prohibition, sometime in the early to mid 1930s. So anyway, 10 High. It's one of those. I like these kind of not storied whiskeys. This one I don't know. I don't have any really cool stories about 10 High. I can tell you that my great-grandmother enjoyed her whiskey, and this was her whiskey of choice. 10 High was her whiskey of choice. And I know that 10 High started off as a Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey, but I think around 2009 I read that they started making, they started producing blended whiskey. They went from, it went from Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey to saying, bourbon a blend or something like that on the label. But if you can see, I'm not sure if they've started producing Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey again, or if I just have an old bottle. Went to this liquor store here in town that sometimes they get old bottles of whiskey. They still have, at this particular store, they have the Jim Beam double aged, which is 8 years old. The Jim Beam Black double aged, I should say. I think Jim Beam has cut back to, making that a 6-year-old product now, but they still have a bunch of bottles of that 8-year-old double aged in there. They also have a few bottles of the Old Granddad 86, which I believe has since been discontinued as well, and cut back to 80 proof. But they still have that one. And then this year, 10 High, as you can see, this is the Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. And this is, as far as I know, this has been, I'm not sure if it's discontinued all over the United States, but at least in some areas. But I was lucky enough to find this one, Kentucky straight bourbon instead of blended whiskey. When they start blending whiskey, it's not the same. They pretty much what the bourbon blends are is half bourbon and half vodka, which is what they blend it with. And it's cheaper to make because vodka doesn't need to be aged like bourbon does. So, they can crank out a lot more, quantity over quality. And, it's always a good bet when you see, if a company has bourbons, say Kentucky straight bourbons, and then they have blended whiskeys, your best bet's always to go with the Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. because even if it's a mass-produced whiskey, you know what you're getting in the bottle. It's going to be a blend of I shouldn't say blend, but it's going to be a bourbon. It's going to be corn. It's going to be rye or wheat, and it's going to be malted barley instead of some other kind of spirit other than whiskey. So anyway, this is as I said, Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey, 80 proof. It says bottled in Barton Distilling Company, or by Barton Distilling Company, Owensboro, Kentucky, Bardstown, Kentucky, and then it says Los Angeles, California. So I'm not sure if maybe they have a. Sounds like they have a distillery. Maybe they expanded out, and there's one in LA too. So anyway, it's an 80 proofer, and as I said, I've never had this one myself. I know that my great grandmother had her fair share of this, so I'll try it out. And of course, I've heard that since they've gone to the blended whiskey, some of this has gone to blended whiskey. It just, the quality has gone down a bit. It's a bottom shelf whiskey, so we don't know what we're gonna get yet. As I said, I've never had this one, so we'll see what we're dealing with here. And on the color, or on the site, it's a light whiskey. I wouldn't imagine this whiskey is any more than maybe 3 years old, something like that, if I had to guess. But it's a light color. It's kind of funny. It's almost a little I don't want to use the word cloudy, but it doesn't look as clear as some of the bourbons that we've reviewed on here before. And on the nose, it's got a nice light smell to it. Again, I would imagine this is a pretty young bourbon. You get your caramel and toffee a little bit. Corn sweetness, definitely corn sweetness there. A little bit of spice, like a woody spice. And I do smell that wood barrel, the oak barrel here. A little bit of vanilla, and that's pretty much it, guys. It's as I said, it's a young whiskey, and it's got that basic whiskey smell to it. You got your oak and your vanilla and your caramel, and a little bit of spiciness. So anyway, let's go in for a taste. Okay, so on the palate, guys, there's nothing offensive about it. There's no harshness, in my opinion. I've had bottom shelf whiskeys all the way up to some pretty good stuff. And when you're drinking a young whiskey versus something that's been aged, say 10 to 15 years, something like that. And this is definitely, as I said before, a young whiskey. There's not a whole lot to it as far as flavor. That's my biggest complaint here. Not a complaint, but my biggest beef about this whiskey is there's just not a whole lot to it. It's your basic vanilla, a little bit of oak. Corn sweetness, that's the main thing I taste. Just that corn sweetness, and it's your basic bourbon. Nothing bad about it, but it's young, and it's just unfinished. It's an unfinished. They probably, I know they make the blended whiskey now at a 10 high. I can't imagine that this one costs a whole lot to make either, just because, it's fine to drink. It's fine to drink straight. If you want something light, it's a fine whiskey to mix. I would imagine that a lot of old style bars probably use this as a well whiskey. Which isn't a bad thing. I mean, you're not going to find um, not everybody's going to have a terrible well whiskey. I mean, you're going to have your younger whiskeys and your whiskeys that do have some rye content. Because they make really good mixtures. And this, I drink it straight. I can drink it straight. I'd rather have a higher proof. I like to have something that's say 86 proof plus. Up to you start talking about more expensive whiskeys. Say a Baker's at 107 proof or a Booker's at 120 proof. But I mean, 80 proof whiskeys, they need love too. They can crank these out a lot faster. Aging them probably 2 or 3 years. I can't imagine it being aged more than that. But anyway, guys, if you find a bottle of 10 High, it's one of those whiskeys. Like I said, it's been around since right after Prohibition, and I believe the name 10 High. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they stack the barrel racks, and or they used to anyway. I'm not sure if they still do, but they used to stack the barrel racks 10 high, 10 barrels high at the distilleries, and that's where they came up with this name. So anyway, find a bottle of 10 High, try it out, sip on it, mix it, whatever you want to do. It's whiskey. Don't take it too seriously. I mean, I shouldn't say don't take it too seriously because I do take my whiskey seriously, but it's a bottom shelf whiskey. I mean, it's, bottom shelf whiskeys. I like to have fun with them. Sometimes I'll have them straight. Sometimes I'll have them, with some Coke or something, and just do what you want. Have fun with it. See what suits you best. And until next time, cheers.